Second business item is related to revoking the existing referendum revenue authorization of the school district and approving the new authorizations and calling a special election thereon. Do I have a motion to move this resolution for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Great, thanks. Board members, any discussion? And since we don't, we have been talking about it for months.
Yes.
Brady Hoffman, Finance Director, is here to give us a presentation.
Good
Kind of pull
evening.
it all together, right?
Yes, going to kind of walk through kind of the work that's been done here for the last several months. Paint a little picture of the reality that we're facing and kind of what this levy resolution means for our students in the community. So why we are where we are, part of this is called the funding gap. Just kind of waiting for the PowerPoint to kick in. I'm not sure if people can see that. There we go. So the funding gap. So since 2003, basic state education aid, that's our main funding from the state, has not kept pace with inflation. So if we look back on this chart, back in 2003, we were receiving just under $5,000 per student. The bottom maroon line is what's actually taken place from then until now. So we're now at $6,863 per student. If the state had just kept pace with inflation on these increases, we'd be up at $7,789 per student. So this gap has been growing and has been in place for years. So just looking, if we took that 926, so that's the gap, $926 per student. That means almost just under $3 million of revenue for South St. Paul if we were funded at the inflation rate. So that's a significant amount that's grown over time. This is a piece that all educational organizations are aware of. So at the Capitol, this is a piece that's lobbied year over year, attached to the formula to inflation because we're continuing to fall behind. So this is a piece that's talked about, discussed heavily, but it's a reality that we're facing. We don't get to control what this revenue amount is. We have to figure out how to live within that. So to narrow this gap, most municipal school districts, including South St. Paul, rely upon voter-approved funds to support student learning. So this is a piece that we've talked about throughout the process. Our operating levy is well below the metro average. So our operating levy is currently $583 per student below the metro average. So when we look at all the metro districts and what they have for voter approved, we're ranked 34th out of 42. Most districts in the metro also have their levies attached to inflation, which we do as well. So the state determines what that inflation factor is and then applies that to our levy amount. But when we're towards the bottom, the higher districts getting the same percent, that gap is going to grow. So they're going to get a larger increase than we are. So we continue to fall further and further behind as inflation is applied year over year. Less levy funding means South St. Paul Schools has less money to support students, staff, and programming. Over the years, we've been financially prudent. We've done everything we can to be resourceful in creating partnerships. We have our tri-district career and college readiness programming, so we're looking for other ways to continue to find opportunities for our students while living within the financial resources that we have. We're creative in making budget adjustments. We're always looking for efficiencies. We're always looking at our programming to make sure we're doing things the best we can. We're looking for other sources of revenue when possible, such as other post-employment benefits funding. So we have funds that now fund post-employment health benefits that before weren't covered. So we're doing things to try and be as resourceful as we can. And being mindful that there's a threshold with financial capacity with our taxpayers. So that brings us to our financial cliff. So without an operating levy, this inadequate state funding, coupled with the end of our COVID funding, means we're facing a $2.7 million shortfall in 2 years. So the funding from the state isn't keeping pace with inflation. You also roll in special ed cross subsidy, English learner cross subsidy. So services are required to provide, but there isn't adequate funding to back it up. It just rolls together to say we're coming up short year over year. And with everything else staying the same, we're still facing reductions. Then with COVID, we received significant federal dollars. So some of these dollars are very broad use, and some of them have been very narrow in scope. So some of them are geared towards PP&E and kind of those pieces for a building. Some of them are dedicated towards technology uses. Others are very broad and maintain your staffing, right? And that's a big piece of what we've been using these dollars for, is to maintain our staffing as we've had, the class sizes we've had, the supports that we've had. So without the COVID funding, we'd already be really digging into how are we going to solve this deficit. So the proposal. So over this last budget cycle, we've had more conversation as a school board and work sessions talking about here's our budget projection, here's the reality we're facing, here's how we stack up. And through those conversations, as it's morphed into say, so now what do we do next? You know, the state does have a budget surplus, but they're not acting on it. They're not doing anything with it, and we're as an administration, we don't want to sit back and wait and say, well, I hope something happens. So we engaged our community through a community survey to see what they were interested in. So through this process, the community was supportive of an increase to our funding, knowing it's going to go to things such as mental health supports and academic supports for our students. It's going to go towards expanded career and college readiness opportunities. It would be looking at things like expanding the arts. Like there was interest from our community in that survey to say, yes, we would support this. We want to invest in our students and in their schools. So through the budget process and these community surveys, we looked at, once again, where we stacked levy-wise, which the conversation with the board took us to where we have these recommendations this evening. So the first question is to increase our operating levy by $900 per student. So that would be revoking $792 of our current authority and replacing that with $1,692. That would be for a 10-year time frame, and that would be attached to inflation. These additional funds would allow us to maintain the small class sizes that we have. We're currently among the smallest in the metro. We would be able to preserve our existing programs and services and then avoid those potentially devastating cuts that would be necessary if we don't have this funding to support those positions and programs. Question number two. So question number two is only a viable question if question one passes. So the second question is to ask the members of our community to support an additional $250 in addition to the $900. And this would allow us to support in the invest in the much needed academic and mental health supports of our students. So we heard that in the community survey. Superintendent Zambrino also heard that through his 90-day entry plan throughout the system as a desired need. We would also be able to expand performing arts opportunities for students and increase career and college readiness opportunities for students. So if that additional $250 passes as well, this is how some of those funds could be used. So once again, question one must pass in order for question two to be able to pass. So what does that mean for our local homeowners? We've worked with our financial advisors to get the tax impact calculations done as far as what would this cost the typical home. So the average home in South St. Paul is about $275,000. So if question one were to pass, that would be an increase of $29 a month or just under $1 a day. If the second question were to pass, that's $8 a month for a combined $37 a month. You can see the $150 value there at the top would be 17 for question one, 5 for question two for a total of 22. And then towards the other end, a $400,000 home would be a $43 increase for question one and $12 for question two. The thing with a levy like this is every single dollar will go back into our schools to support our students and our staff. So all of this increase comes right back to the school districts, the schools of South St. Paul. So if question one fails, that's where we'd have these significant financial repercussions. There would be reductions in educational programming. There would be reductions in staff. Our class sizes would increase, and we'd have less academic and mental health supports for our students. If question one passes, but question two fails, we would avoid those significant repercussions. So we'd be able to maintain the programming that we have, but we wouldn't have the ability to invest in the much needed academic and mental health supports. We wouldn't have the ability to expand on some of our performing arts programming or increase our college and career readiness opportunities. So community information can be found in a few different ways. We're going to be holding community information meetings. Those dates are yet to be set. We also will be sending out informational brochures and mailers. And then we also will have a page on our website dedicated towards the levy information, these questions, and that is listed here on this slide. It's www.sspps.org/levy2022. So that is a quick overview of a lot of hours and a lot of time that this group here has spent discussing and reviewing and considering options. So that's a quick high level, so I'll turn it over to the board members to see if you have any questions for us to address, or if Superintendent Zambrino has any additional comments he'd like to make as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just say, this is not something any of us enter into lightly. We take, great responsibility in being good stewards of taxpayer dollars. coming in, you all interviewed me and gave me a question, what does that look like? And, I was like, wow, are we going this fall? And it was like, no, we're not necessarily going to do that. But when I got out into the community and heard the priorities of the community that it really are for the kids, making sure that their needs are met academically, knowing that there's been, pretty significant impact of the pandemic, knowing that there's a desire to expand, hands-on learning, career pathways, hopefully being able to get more opportunity to earn post-secondary college credits for those who want, there's just a number of things that we want to do. And then it became pretty clear to me just how dire our financial situation is. And the district, as Brady mentioned, been remarkable and doing everything to put the dollars in the classroom and keep class size small and offer a wide variety of programs. But it just became clear to me that that's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, in some cases. We debated, do you put a number of people to that dollar amount? And I don't want anyone to think it's what we would be, but just to put it into classroom teachers, a $2.7 million shortfall would be about 34 teachers, and we only have 4 schools. And so, my piece was, as I brought to you all, like, we probably should have this conversation sooner than later so we can hopefully get out in front of this. And the district has been advocating for equalization, which is a technical term, but would help us out quite a bit. We'll continue to push on those things. We'll be proactive. Brady mentioned the cross subsidy is something where it's the underfunding of services for special education and English learners. And for those who didn't track my background, understandable why, but I was a special education teacher and I taught new to country students English. They deserve those services, but those are unfunded mandates. So we will always fund them, but the state is not funding them at the level we'd like. And so we'll continue to champion those causes, but hope is not a plan. We've been hoping the legislature will act on equalization. We've been hoping the legislature would act on the cross subsidy, the basic formula allowance. It just isn't, it hasn't been happening. And so communities are having to turn within. And so you saw that last slide that said Packer Pride, Packer Promise. We thought, that's a great way to sum up what we're hoping to do here. And our promise is to be good stewards of those dollars if the community gets behind that. First, of course, if you all decide to approve the proposal. And we're happy to answer questions, of course, too.
Thank you. I think too, what we want the community to know is that this isn't something that, as we talked about last week and we're bringing forth today. It has been months and months of discussions, Brady really bringing projections for look what's going to happen. We need to have a plan. And we've thought about other things, and I just think about your comment to Principal Board about really being creative with her solutions. And I think that we have asked our administration and our teachers, our students, our families to really try to be creative with what we have. And we don't have much. And our kids deserve just as much opportunity than, and I don't want to pinpoint any other district, but than the folks, in the West districts. Like, we deserve too. Our kids are important, just as important. So I think knowing that big picture has helped us move along this journey to get here. It was really difficult. Bringing in fresh eyes, to come in and go, wow, how have you been living like this? I think has really helped us see that we can't continue on this way. So it has been something we've been thinking about. Monica Weber, the 7th board member, is not here tonight, but she has been
Passionate about it.
She's so passionate. She is part of the AMSD, which I don't know what that acronym is.
Association of Metropolitan School Districts.
Thank you. Yeah. And talks about legislation a lot. So it has something that she has been very passionate about and agrees that something else needs to be done. So we just wanted to get her thoughts out on the table too. But I'd like to hear from the rest of the board, bring forth last minute questions or thoughts that you have, anything you've heard from the community?
Yeah, yeah, the one thing that Brady, I've always liked to see when we show charts, when we show, let's say Dakota County, where does South St. Paul School District fall, on that list, with our levies and things like that, and how we're not even at the average. And then when you look at the whole metropolitan area, our school district, we're way almost to the bottom. We're number like 34, I believe, out of the whole metropolitan state area. And I think showing those charts to the community is very, very eye-opening and very passionate to us to help our kids, to boost our morale, to boost our staff, to show their support and let them know how much we care, because we want to keep everybody together and safe and keep our buildings going and with excellent education and staff. So that's the one thing that I always look forward to seeing when we do presentations to the community for this event.
Yep, and we'll have that information on our website.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And I'll phrase this as a question to Brady, but what the board is voting on tonight is not a tax increase, because we do not have the authority. We're the only governmental agency that doesn't have the authority to raise or lower taxes. What we are voting on tonight is to present the question to the community for them to decide what they want to do. We can either continue on as we are, looking at the repercussions of not increasing the funding as you had up on your slide, or to accept the proposals and provide more funding to the schools. So it's
Great clarification.
Correct. Yep, you're posing the question to the community.
right.
For them to decide.
It's their decision. It's not the board's decision.
Correct.
I think the important thing to realize here is we're not asking for something we don't need. And the other thing that impressed me, Brady, was when you said every dollar will be spent on education, and I think that deserves to be said again for somebody who may have missed it. But we're not looking for something that our kids don't need at this point in time. So, and it's going in the right place. And, I guess I'm done.
Great point.
I think to add to that, Bill, it's not just that every dollar is spent on education, it's spent on our kids, the ones that are inside our city. And so this is a problem we've been waiting for solutions for, and those solutions aren't coming. So it's up to us to fix it. I think about my own daughter's journey through education. She's entering 10th grade. And in all 11 years that she has been in South St. Paul schools, at the end of every year, our school districts have been facing some level of massive budget cut. For 11 years, we've watched that get whittled away, which means our schools are a little bit less than when she started. And that, I think, is a really unfortunate place to be in. And our kids deserve a better picture than that. And we deserve to continue really strong programs for all of our students. And so really passionate about that, and really passionate about a good quality education is the key to success in adulthood. And I think we deserve to give that to our community.